I just spent a small fortune on collectible tools. Some of these are around 100 plus years old. So let's get the testing underway and see if this ratchet, which is 100 years old, is just as good or even better than the modern ratchets. In the first test, we'll see if the vintage ratchets have a better working arc swing than the new ones. Then we'll compare the performance of adjustable wrenches. The first is several antique ratchets. This one is made by Snap-on and is supposed to be around 100 years old. For being around 100 years old, this Snap-on is in very good working condition. I think the modern ratchets are going to really struggle to outperform this vintage Snap-on when it comes to back drag. Most of the modern ratchets have between 80 and 100 gear teeth. This one has 20. This ratchet does not have a patent number, but it does say patent applied for. And this antique Snap-on is made in Kenosha, Wisconsin, USA. Weight is sometimes an indicator of quality, and the vintage Snap-on weighs 217.24 grams. Manufacturers sell ratchets using marketing material about arc swing and tooth count. They're trying to convince you that their ratchet is the best for working in a tight space. So let's see how the ratchets actually compare working within a 30-degree space. We'll see how many right to left passes it takes for one full 360-degree rotation. Gear slop, tooth count, handle width, and excessive tolerances are all factors. If there's not enough room to swing the handle, the gear inside can't engage the next tooth. With just 20 teeth, the vintage Snap-on struggles to advance. It even missed a tooth on one attempt. However, it has a very precise gearbox with very little slop compared to modern ratchets. And the vintage Snap-on is finished at 21.2 right to left swings. Very impressive! At a price of $147, is this Snap-on ratchet? They claim it has a 100-tooth gear with 3.6 degrees of swing arc. Low-profile head for increased accessibility. Sealed head keeps lubricants in and contaminants out. The trademarked handle is contoured for comfort and control. And the Snap-on is made in USA. And the brand new Snap-on does have a 2-inch longer handle and weighs 320.03 grams. And the 102 Snap-on seems to be performing just about the same as the vintage Snap-on. However, the Snap-on is advancing 4 to 5 teeth with each right to left swing. So after 100 years of perfecting the ratchet, the modern ratchet barely edges out the vintage one by just one right to left swing at 20.2. Wow! This vintage Challenger ratchet was built somewhere between the 1950s and the 1970s. I think it has around 46 gear teeth. It even has a knurled handle for grip. And this Challenger ratchet is still in very good working condition. And this vintage Challenger ratchet is made in USA. And the vintage Challenger weighs 260.2 grams. With a name like Challenger, expectations are pretty high for a ratchet that's over 50 years old. And the Challenger is performing well at around 16 degrees of progress with each right to left swing. And the Challenger moves into third place behind the antique Snap-on at 22.4 right to left swings. And going up against the Challenger is this Sada brand, which cost around $15. All the ratchets we'll be testing have a 3/8-inch drive. It's a 72-tooth ratchet with dual material grip. They claim it has a 5-degree swing arc to work in confined spaces. Flush reverse lever for convenient one-handed operation. And the brand new Sada weighs 267 grams, but it does have a 2-inch longer handle. And the Sada has 72 gear teeth, but the gearbox seems pretty sloppy compared to both Snap-on ratchets. And the Sada is only making around 15 degrees of progress with each right to left swing. And the Sada moves into fourth place behind the vintage Challenger at 24 passes. I believe that this vintage SK was built sometime during the 1980s. The main gear has around 50 gear teeth. It seems like it has pretty low back drag, and is still in very good working condition. Definitely a nice tool find. And the SK is made in USA. The vintage SK weighs 284.63 grams. And the vintage SK ratchet seems to have had a lot of use, and the gear set seems a lot looser compared to the Challenger from all the wear and tear over the years. And the gear set seems pretty sloppy and worn. And the vintage SK is making about the same amount of progress as the Sada at 15 degrees of progress with each pass. And the vintage SK moves into two-way tie for fourth place with the Sada at 24 passes. Competing against the SK is this Gear Wrench brand. It's the Gear Wrench 120 XP. Double stack pawls alternately engage a 60-tooth gear. It's supposed to offer a 3-degree ratcheting arc. Enclosed head design allows for extreme resistance to dirt infiltration. It has a low profile head. And the Gear Wrench is made in Taiwan. The brand new Gear Wrench does have a longer handle, and it weighs 324.04 grams. And the Gear Wrench 120 only has 60 teeth but 2 alternating pawls. Unfortunately, the Gear Wrench just isn't performing as well this time as it did a couple of years ago when I last reviewed it. And it's 23.9 passes for the Gear Wrench. So the brand new Snap-on came in on top at 20.2 passes. The vintage Snap-on finished in second place at 21.2 passes, and the vintage Challenger third at 22.4. On average, the vintage ratchets are outperforming the new ones. Using a ratchet with a lot of back drag can really make it challenging at times. If there's enough space, adding resistance to the socket using finger pressure allows the ratchet to advance, but that's not always an option. I have a fishing string attached to this 7/8-inch socket that's attached to the scale. I'll lift the ratchet until the gear set advances. Most modern ratchets struggle on this test at 400 to 500 grams of back drag, but the vintage Snap-on aced this test at only 246 grams. Very impressive! And the brand new high-tech Snap-on struggled in this test at 472 grams of back drag, or almost twice as much as the vintage Snap-on. Once again, the vintage Challenger moves into third place behind the Snap-on ratchets at 564 grams. And Asada's gear set seems pretty loose and sloppy, which really helped it on this test at 366 grams. And a vintage SK ratchet seems very well designed for low back drag at only 312 grams to move into second place behind a vintage Snap-on. And a Gear Wrench 120 has two pawls dragging on the main gear, and that really hurt it on this test at 678 grams to move into last place behind a vintage Challenger. So the vintage Snap-on came out on top at a very impressive 246 grams. The vintage SK Tools finished in second place at 312 grams and Sada third at 366. If your hands are oily or greasy, it can be a bit of a challenge to switch directions with the directional lever on some of the ratchets. So let's compare the amount of force that it takes to make the switch in directions. And the vintage Snap-on continues to impress at only 80 grams to change directions. Very impressive! And the new Snap-on takes over 4 times as much force to change directions at 356 grams. And the vintage Challenger takes less force than the new Snap-on at 306 grams. And the Sada performed about the same as the new Snap-on at 352 grams of force. And the vintage SK Tools ratchet performed almost the same as the vintage Challenger at 304 grams. And the Gear Wrench 120 XP takes the most force of all the ratchets at 414 grams. So once again, the oldest ratchet in the lineup came out on top at 80 grams of force to change directions. The vintage SK Tools finished in second place at 304 grams and Challenger third at 306. If you're trying to work in a tight space, the vintage Snap-on is very compact from front to back at only 23.05 millimeters and pretty narrow from side to side at 31.47 millimeters. And the new Snap-on is at 23.5 millimeters from front to back and 30.54 from side to side, so it's a little bit more narrow than the vintage. And the biggest challenge for the Challenger is the large head size at 33.37 by 35.23 millimeters, which is about 38% larger than the new Snap-on. And the Sada is pretty compact at 24.4 by 32.01 millimeters, or about 7% larger than the new Snap-on. And the SK Tools is way too large to fit into tight spaces at 33.11 millimeters by 35.56. And the Gear Wrench XP 120 is almost as compact as the Sada at 25.06 millimeters by 31.98. If we take the front to back measurement and multiply it by the side to side measurement, that'll give us the square millimeters for ratchet head size. So after around 100 years of attempting to improve the ratchet, the new Snap-on is about 1% smaller than the vintage Snap-on. The Sada is also pretty compact for a budget ratchet at 781 square millimeters. Let's test the failure load of each of the ratchets. I'm not quite ready to break the vintage Snap-on, so let's start with the new one. And the Snap-on performed extremely well, and the internal gear mechanism finally broke at 298 foot-pounds. Let's take a look inside at the damage. And it looks like part of the selector switch mechanism as well as the pawls broke. And there's quite a bit of damage to the main gear. And the vintage Challenger gave up very early at just under 25 foot-pounds. And the Challenger is completely wrecked, and it's pretty obvious that it had some pre-existing internal damage, as the main teeth have a lot of wear and damage. And parts went everywhere. And the Sada performed well, making it to 268.4 foot-pounds when the main drive broke. The pawl is still in good shape, but there appears to be a little bit of damage to the main gear. And the vintage SK Tools gave up early at only 108.2 foot-pounds when the drive snapped. A look inside and the gears are badly worn from many years of use, and the pawls have a lot of wear. And the Gear Wrench 120 took flight at 301.9 foot-pounds, and the ratchet did not yet break. So let's try this again. And the drive on the Gear Wrench broke this time at 296 foot-pounds. And the main gear is still in good shape, and so are both pawls. I really wish I could keep this Snap-on in good working order. However, I'm sure most people want to know the failure load of the vintage ratchet. And the vintage Snap-on let go at 122.4 foot-pounds. Let's try this again, going in the other direction. And the old Snap-on gave up at almost the exact same force once again at 122.8 foot-pounds. Hey, look inside the ratchet, and this is some very old-looking grease. The directional switch acts as a single-tooth pawl. And the main gear has 2 broken teeth. The rest of the remaining gears experienced a lot of wear and tear from many decades of use. So when it comes to ratchet durability, the new ratchets definitely outperform the vintage ones. The second category of testing includes adjustable wrenches, and this Craftsman costs around $19. The Clement has wide opening jaws for added versatility. In a recent review on adjustable wrenches, the Craftsman actually performed pretty well considering the price. It has a chrome finish for corrosion resistance. It even includes a metric and SAE scale. It's supposed to meet or exceed ASME specifications. And the Craftsman is made in India. And the Craftsman weighs 440 grams. And the Craftsman advertises a jaw opening of 1 3/8 inches, and it's just under that at 1.36. And the Craftsman has close to 1 millimeter of up and down slop and 0.86 millimeters of side-to-side movement. A wrench with a lot of slop will self-adjust and back off with movement or vibration. So let's see how much each adjustable wrench backs off when they experience vibration from a compact impact wrench for a fraction of a second. And the brand new Craftsman performed well, backing off 0.3 millimeters to 19.23. Going up against the Craftsman is this Pexto Coast Girard adjustable wrench, which I believe was built in the 1920s. It's in surprisingly great working condition considering the age. Compared to a brand new wrench, it is at a disadvantage since it does have quite a bit of wear and tear. However, no need to make excuses for this old timer, let's just see what it can do. And the Pexto Coast Girard is made in the USA. They definitely don't build them like they used to at 902 grams. And the Craftsman claims to have a wide opening jaw, but compared to the Pexto, it's nowhere close. And the vintage Pexto is at 1.89 inches, or about a ½ inch larger than the Craftsman. And the Pexto is very sloppy at 4.33 millimeters up and down and 1.8 side to side. And the vintage Pexto adjustable wrench is very large and heavy at over 900 grams. However, the jaws did vibrate open to 19.4 millimeters or 0.47 millimeters of jaw opening. At a price of $41 is this SK Tools adjustable wrench. The Clayman has a cobalt-based coating to prevent rust and corrosion. It even comes with a full lifetime warranty. There's no information on the wrench regarding where it was manufactured. And the SK is relatively light at only 410 grams. And the SK Tools offers the least jaw capacity yet at 1.26 inches. And 0.91 millimeters of up and down movement by 0.75 is a little bit better than the Craftsman. And the worm gear on the SK Tools only makes 3 points of contact, and the jaw opened up quite a bit to 19.34 millimeters. Going up against the SK is this antique Signet Manufacturing Company brand. From my research, it was built sometime in the 1920s or 30s. This adjustable wrench definitely has quite a bit of wear and tear, but it's still in very good working condition. And the Signet was built in Buffalo, New York, USA. The Signet is only 8 inches long and is still pretty heavy at 392 grams. And the Signet has the least jaw capacity yet at 1.18 inches. However, it's by far the best yet at only 0.08 millimeters of up and down movement by only 0.29 side to side. Very impressive. When the worm gear is tightened enough, the Signet manufacturing handle rotates to provide a tighter fit. Unloaded, the Signet jaws are actually smaller than the nut at 17.8 millimeters. In the recent review on adjustable wrenches, the Milwaukee brand also performed well, and it cost $33 for 2 wrenches. So much better than a utility knife. They claim the adjustment screw gears are designed for smooth adjustment. They also claim the jaws won't back off. Parallel jaws won't slip or damage finish surfaces. And the Milwaukee wrenches are made in Taiwan. And the 10-inch Milwaukee weighs 506 grams. And the Milwaukee offers the most jaw capacity of any of the new wrenches at 1.43. And 0.4 inches of up and down movement by 0.76 side to side is the second best behind the vintage Signet. The Milwaukee brand claims that their wrench does not back off, and the Milwaukee moves into the lead at 19.15 millimeters. Competing against the Milwaukee is this vintage Ford brand adjustable wrench. The Ford adjustable wrench looks pretty old, but I don't know exactly when it was manufactured. My guess is that it was built before the 1950s. I hope you leave a comment if you know when this wrench was built. Fortunately, this wrench is in very good working order. However, it is at a pretty big disadvantage since the lower jaw is pretty beat up. And the Ford wrench is made in USA. And the Ford wrench is pretty light at 386 grams. And the Ford has the largest jaw capacity yet at 2.07 inches. And 0.92 up and down by 2.41 side to side is pretty sloppy. And the vintage Ford has quite a bit of slop, and that really hurt its performance. And the vintage Ford opened up to 19.38 millimeters. Also competing against the Milwaukee is this vintage Proto wrench. I'm thinking it was built in the 1960s or 70s. There is some minor wear and tear to the lower jaw, but it's still in pretty good condition. And the upper jaw also has some minor wear and tear. And the vintage Proto is made in USA. And the Proto weighs 406 grams. And the vintage Proto has a pretty limited jaw capacity at 1.23 inches. The Proto has definitely seen better days at 1.21 millimeters of up and down movement by 1.99 side to side. And the vintage Proto is a little bit stiff as you'd expect from an old timer, and that really helped it at 19.19 millimeters. So the vintage Signet manufacturing adjustable wrench has a unique handle and jaw design, and the jaws did not open. Milwaukee finished in second place at 0.22 millimeters, and vintage Proto third at 0.26. So the vintage Ford offers the largest jaw capacity at 2.07 inches. When it comes to tight tolerances and build quality, the vintage Signet came out on top at only 0.08 millimeters of up and down jaw movement. The Milwaukee finished in second place at 0.4 millimeters. The Signet also came out on top for side-to-side jaw movement at 0.29 millimeters. SK finished in second place at 0.75 and Milwaukee third at 0.76 millimeters. Let's see how much torque the adjustable wrenches can produce on these relatively soft coupling nuts. I'll replace the coupling nut between testing each of the brands. To measure the torque, I'll be using a torque wrench calibration tester, and I'll set the tester to measure inch-pounds. And the brand new Craftsman did a great job at 1,004 inch-pounds of torque, which is going to be really hard to beat. It did a great job of gaining a grip on the coupling nut. Considering its age at around 100 years old, the Pexto performed well at 668.4 inch-pounds. Let's try this again to see if the Pexto can perform even better. And the Pexto performed about the same on the second attempt at 676.2 inch-pounds. And the SK Tools performed well at 963.6 inch-pounds, or about 40 inch-pounds less than the brand new Craftsman. And the lower jaw in the Signet appears to be bent just a little, and that's really hurting its performance at only 272.1 inch-pounds. It's still pretty impressive to see a wrench this old still going to work. And the Milwaukee just moved into the lead at 1,182 inch-pounds. Very impressive. The Milwaukee did a really great job of gaining a grip. Considering the wear and tear already experienced by the Ford, it did a great job at 860.2 inch-pounds. Very impressive. And the Vintage Proto has experienced a lot of wear and tear over the years, and it too performed well at 968.7 inch-pounds. So the new Milwaukee came out on top at 1,182 inch-pounds. The new Craftsman finished in second place at 1,004 inch-pounds. Fortunately, the Vintage Proto made the top 3 list. Let's repeat this test using a coupling nut that requires a 5/8 inch wrench. And the Craftsman's lower jaw is very strong, and it didn't seem to stretch, making it to 1,654 inch-pounds. Very impressive! And the Vintage Pexto is definitely suited for larger fasteners, and it performed well at 1,249 inch-pounds. And the new SK Tools continues to trail the Craftsman at 1,472 inch-pounds to move into second place. And the Signet made it to 435.1 inch-pounds. Unfortunately, the lower jaw is bent, and that's really hurting its performance. And it looks like the lower jaw in the Milwaukee stretched just a little, and the Milwaukee moves into second place behind the Craftsman at 1,547 inch-pounds. And the Ford continues to perform well, barely edging out the Vintage Pexto at 1,252 inch-pounds. And the Proto moves into second place behind the Craftsman at 1,566. Not bad considering its age and condition. So all the adjustable wrenches benefited from the larger nut, with the Craftsman coming out on top this time at 1,654 inch-pounds. The Vintage Proto finished in second place at 1,566 inch-pounds, and Milwaukee third at 1,547. Let's test the failure load of the adjustable wrenches next. I've secured the wrench to the tester for safety purposes, and I'm completely out of harm's way. And the Craftsman is very well built and designed to handle a lot of abuse, finally letting go at just over 800 pounds. And the lower jaw on the Craftsman is the point of failure. And the SK Tools adjustable wrench has trailed the Craftsman throughout the showdown. And the lower jaw is experiencing a lot of stretch and reached a peak force of just over 600 pounds when the wrench escaped the tester. Unfortunately, the worm drive is now frozen. And the lower jaw on the Signet is already bent and is continuing to bend without too much force. Unfortunately, it's already over for the Signet at just over 200 pounds. And the lower jaw is cracked and badly bent downward. And the Milwaukee has performed very well throughout the showdown. And it's performing well once again, finally giving up around 867 pounds, the most force yet. The lower jaw survived, but the worm drive experienced catastrophic failure. And the Proto's experienced a lot of use over many years, but it still has great strength. And the Proto finally let go at 635 pounds, and the lower jaw is the point of failure. And this antique Ford wrench moves into the lead with a peak force of 1,133 pounds. Very impressive. Maybe Ford should make more tools. And the lower jaw experienced catastrophic damage. And the Pexto was built before planned obsolescence became widely adopted in manufacturing. And this thing is almost indestructible. The handle began bending, but the main part of the wrench wants more. And the wrench made it to 1,620 pounds before I ended the test for safety reasons. And the lower jaw did experience a bend, but the wrench is still in one piece. And they definitely don't make tools like they used to, with the Pexto coming out on top at 1,620 pounds. The old Ford adjustable wrench finished in second place at 1,133 pounds, and Milwaukee third at 867. So are vintage ratchets actually better than modern ratchets? The left side of the scorecard includes some ungraded basic information about the ratchets. And the right side of the scorecard includes the graded categories. I've converted the raw scores into a first through last place ranking. And a vintage Snap-on came out on top with the best average finish of second place in 4 graded categories. The vintage Snap-on was designed with incredible simplicity and precision, allowing it to have very low back drag and virtually no internal slop within the gearbox. The directional switch is very simple yet very smooth and easy to work with. So does this mean that the vintage Snap-on is actually better than a modern ratchet? Absolutely not. Unfortunately, it did break at only 122.4 foot-pounds compared to more than double that for the new ratchets. The brand new Snap-on is definitely the best ratchet in the showdown. However, it has way too much back drag to work efficiently, and the directional lever is also pretty stiff. When it comes to adjustable wrenches, the new ones dominated the showdown, with the Milwaukee coming out on top with an average finish of 2.3. The new Craftsman also performed well with an average finish of 3.3. Even though the Signet struggled with turning power, I'm very impressed with the ingenuity and craftsmanship that went into designing this wrench. There's actually a part 2 to this video over on the Project Farm Extra channel. I have a lot of very interesting content planned for the new channel. I just hope you'll take time to go check it out. All the videos in this channel, including this one, are viewer suggested, so if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching, please take care, and look forward to next time.